So great. So welcome to this morning's webinar, Being a Leader in an Empowered Organization, brought to you by Better Product Work. And we at Better Product Work, we think that the conventional way to build products is broken. So we challenge convention and partner with visionary leaders who have the conviction to build high-performing organizations. So that's a lot of what we do. We work a lot with different companies in helping them move to a better way of developing products. This is something that we've done for a long time, and we've also built organizations ourselves. So that's mainly what we do. In that, there's many different parts of which leadership is one, a very crucial one for sure, in how to run a well functioning organization in building products. And so that's the topic for today then. So my name is Mikael Brod, or Micke in short in Swedish. So I'm going to be speaking today together with Johannes. Hi, Johannes.
Hello, I'm Johannes now. Although, a bit of my background, I've been spending more than 20 years in product development, including TPO and VP roles, but also coaching roles. I've been alternating between helping organizations build great product, but also have been building them kind of myself in the line, so to speak. And this is a dear subject to me. I've been struggling a lot over the years to kind of, how do you enable empowerment through your way of being a leader? So this is a very interesting topic to me.
And we have three more colleagues. Christoph, who's with us in the call today. And we have also Kalle and Joachim Sundén together. So we alternate in speaking at these webinars. And so that's us so far. We've just been around for a year. So we're kind of a new little consultancy company here. But so let's start a bit, little slowly. Let's see if we can get some Menti going. So start by logging into the Menti and start with a little question. So let's see where you're joining from today. Okay, so far only Sweden. There we go. Copenhagen. Hello, Copenhagen.
Bromma for the win.
And Bromma for the win.
Yeah. Great.
Nice. Two from Copenhagen. Cool. So all of Sweden from the north to the south and Copenhagen. Very nice.
Yeah, literally. Höganäs to Umeå. That's quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice spread, so to say. Okay, cool. So keep this Menti. We will get back to the Menti later. We won't be asking any tough questions. We'll do some other things later on in the Menti. Okay, so either write in the chat or just shout out. What's this? What's the picture showing? Anyone? A crossing between a car and a bike. Yes, close enough. It is actually a bike. Sorry, a car. Yes, true. It is a car. And this is how the cars looked in the beginning. But this is how cars look nowadays. Okay, so what's this then? Any idea what this can be? Telegraph, loudspeaker, yes, close enough. This is actually one of the first telephones.
Yeah.
And this is what telephones looks like today. Cool. Anyone that knows what this is? Yeah, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. It says there in the top of the picture. It's an old organizational chart of how a company looks like. This is actually from 1917. And lo and behold, this is how organization charts looks today. Not that much difference, right? There's some more nice colors. Yes, true. But not that much has happened. And this is something that we're very interested in. How come that there's been so much development in all areas, but when it comes to organizations and development of companies and leadership, not as much perhaps has happened. And this is kind of interesting. Because the old T Ford time, Henry Ford time, building T Fords at the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century, the assembly line, of course, this is the time of Frederick Taylor when it was really, really important to separate leadership from working. So you had the Tayloristic model going around, with stopwatches, checking that you did your work on time and trying to optimize the work. At this time, it wasn't that fun to work in the assembly line. You could actually be fired if you were smiling at work. So work is serious. It's not child's play. My God. So you better be doing this seriously. So, and you kind of got away with it back in the days because, work was highly standardized and very individual. So you did your small part along the assembly line, and that's what you did. And it was also very objective to see when you were done. Either the thing that you assembled to the car, it was assembled correctly and it would work, or it wouldn't. And if not sooner, then at least at the end of the assembly line when you test drove the car, if it worked, it worked. Yes. So it's really, really super objective, Yes, it works. No, it doesn't. Kind of black and white. But, as you've heard a gazillion times, change is increasing. And this nice business acronym, the VUCA, the volatile, the uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, this is just increasing. The VUCA acronym was actually brought to life during the Second World War. There's other acronyms around today, like BANI, which is that the world is brittle and anxious and non-linear and incomprehensible. So even worse. And change is ever increasing, and well, if pandemics and wars and such isn't enough, then of course the whole AI revolution and how your organization and the products that you're doing and so on, if the environment and the context around you and your company definitely changing very, very fast. So work has changed and looks something like this today. So it's very much more that you need to be creative. You have to work team-based with different competencies together. And it's really, really hard to know when you're done. Especially, of course, there's companies today that still uses assembly lines, and we can see that, but I guess that all companies today are in a way software powered, more or less. Either you're just building, SaaS products that's 100% software, or you're powered by software in some way. And so software is not that tangible. How do you know that you're done? You don't. It is actually in the power of your users or your customers. They will tell you and let you know whether your product works or not. Does it solve our problem or doesn't it? So work has changed, but organizations, not that much. We still have the classic org chart. So, and when we look at leadership as it is, it's kind of interesting. And this might be a part of the why it still looks like it does today. So this is the U.S. naval textbook from 1991 for leadership, where it actually says that leadership can be defined as directing the thoughts, plans, and actions of others so as to obtain and command their obedience, their confidence, their respect, and their loyal cooperation. So, in other words, with your fantastic charisma, or if you don't have that, at least your authority to promote or punish, you motivate people to blindly follow you and do whatever you ask them to. Okay, so if that's our view of leadership, it's not really strange that organizations look like this, and most of them still do. And you know the problems with this kind of organization trying to do very creative work is that it's not easy to be in top management. You don't really know what's happening, you know, in uh, you don't really know what's happening here in the frontline silos, as it says. So like the people actually building something. So you try to control the work by having long-term projects, detailed budgets, and different kinds of toll gates because you don't really see what's happening in day-to-day work. And that, of course, puts pressure on middle management. So they get pressured by this. And of course, if that's what they measured on, then of course, yes, we have to make sure that we deliver on plan, that the time, budget, and scope is within what's been said, and that's the most important. And the most important is to deliver something, not really to check whether what we have delivered actually solves some problems for our users or customers. And so that, of course, tells the teams or the people doing the work that, okay, the most important thing is that we deliver on time. Okay. And the organization that we have here, where we have perhaps IT, we have the business, we have marketing, we have sales, and so on. Collaboration is really, really hard. And we know that value is created in the collaboration between all of these competencies. And again, it's not easy in these type of companies to be working in top management because we don't really have any direct feedback loop either back to them. So they're working kind of in the blind. And if they do that, of course, what they do is that they request more reports, more status updates, and so on in order to make their decisions. And that's, again, increases the pressure, of course, of the organization to, okay, so now we have to write more status reports. We need to update more things in order to move the information that we have up to top management so that they can make very good and the best decisions possible with the information that they can have. But we know that information is diluted on the way up here. Things will happen. So this becomes a vicious cycle. So we what we really want to do is try to move away from that and break that vicious cycle. And we know that there's modern leadership theories and things out there, and perhaps the servant leadership where perhaps not everything started, but at least this is some kind of beginning, written by Greenleaf, that talks about not the leader as a servant, like a waiter at a restaurant, but serving the others in the organization. So working for their best. And we have a lot of things we like quite a lot. David Marquet, and we'll get back to him. Turn the Ship Around is perhaps his most famous book. And there's a lot of others. We have Amy Edmondson talking about psychological safety. We have leadership agility. We have Carol Dweck, who wrote about the growth mindset. We have Dan Pink with the drive, and we have Jerry Weinberg, who done a lot around the problem-solving leadership challenge, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of this that all describes another way of organizing and setting up an organization, and another way of type of leadership. rather than to command people into their obedience. And what we see here is that there's a common thread, that leadership is creating an environment where everyone can contribute to solve the problem at hand, that Jerry Weinberg said. Or the job of the leaders is to create environments where people can be at their best, from David Marquet. Leadership is about recognizing there's greatness in everyone, and your job is to create an environment where the greatness can emerge, from Bill Campbell, who's portrayed in the $1 Trillion Coach book. He was a coach to Steve Jobs and many others in Silicon Valley. The leader is an enabler who creates and maintains an ecosystem in which the organization operates, which requires the disciplined practice of empowered execution from General Stanley McChrystal. So there's a lot of this, and you see the common thread here is focus on creating an environment where others can shine. So that's the focus really of the modern leadership here. It's not telling people what to do. It is to create a system, an environment where they have the possibility to do their best work. And that's what we're going to dive into. So if you manage to do that, then you get this kind of organization instead. And this is how an empowered organization looks like, where you have empowered product teams in some kind of a network, where you have team focus, where the teams are self-organizing, cross-functional, they are self-steering towards goals, and you have collaboration between teams when you need to have collaboration between teams. Collaboration is not hard. We make sure that it's easy to collaborate. And management, their focus is instead on vision and goals and the strategic context and insights. So setting the direction and making sure that everybody understands that and get all the information that they need in order to understand that. We have the servant leadership and people development, of course, and deblocking of teams so that they actually can do their work. And this, combined with having transparent information that goes both ways instead of information hogging, then this opens up the possibility for us to have a very collaborative environment where information flows so that we together can make great decisions. And as you see, the pyramid is turned upside down. You know, the famous book of Jan Karlsson from SAS here in Sweden, at least in the 80s, Tear Down the Pyramids. And there's a lot of other stuff that's also, of course, is written on this. So this is really the goal for having an empowered organization. So what we see here is that there's a focus on teams. And if we go to another almost infamous Swedish company now, Spotify, of course, they have something called an autonomous squad, and squad is just their name for team. So one of their principles is that the most important feature of the organization is the autonomous squad or autonomous team. All other features are designed to support that mini startup-like squad. So that's, the smallest unit of the organization is the autonomous team, cross-functional, self-steering. And this is also the same thing as another famous author and character out there in the product world, Marty Kagan. You might have heard of him. If not, please follow him and his company, Silicon Valley Product Group. So what we see here is that his language, mainly written in Empowered, is almost the same, but he has changed the word autonomous to empowerment instead. So the most important thing is to empower teams by assigning them problems to solve and then give the teams the space to solve them. So empowering team is giving them the mandate. The teams have the decision power in order to decide what to build and what to create. and we as leadership around that helps them get as much information and knowledge and so on in order to do that. So that being said, we also have written a article together with Marty Kagan on the product model at Spotify. It's both at SVPG's site and at our site. So if you're interested in diving deeper in that topic, then you're very welcome to read that, of course. And so now from this part, we're going to move over to the Miro board, Johannes. So I'm going to stop sharing here.
Yeah, excellent. We're going to do a very short exercise, and we're not asking you to go into the Miro just to save time, but let's brainstorm together. What is actually needed for teams to be empowered and autonomous? You can think about like, what if you wanted your team to take full ownership of outcomes, what would need to be true? You can just use your voice and say it out loud, or use the chat, and me and Mikke will try to capture the things you say on little sticky notes here. So, what do you say? We're super curious to hear your perspective on this. What do teams need in order to be empowered and autonomous? What needs to be true for them to be taking responsibility for their outcomes?
Yes, good.
It was allowed to speak also, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I've been on the transport here now, but I landed in the room, so I will turn on my camera again. But I was thinking about what I recognized or realized. It's needed kind of a reminder that it's allowed, because I from time to time bump into hesitation and hesitation to do it, and they are like waiting for some kind of manager approval or so, but kind reminders that they are totally allowed to do it themselves, and also showing by example, whatever that could be.
Okay, so as a leader, showing by example that it's okay in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. By almost empowering some kind of mistakes and showing that is totally part of the thing.
Okay, cool. So it's okay to fail, and we learn from that in a sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's also lead by example, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. And we have vision, purpose, safety. That's good. Good stuff. And I wrote down it's allowed, just reminding people, and showing by example. We have a lot of things in the chats. You have a lot of ideas on this. That's good.
Yes, I think I've transcribed most of it, Johannes.
Okay, very cool.
So you can start sorting the things down here.
So we have vision. That's a good, of course, a great part of it. Having clear goals, so to speak. That's good. What does it say here? Ownership of output. Yeah, that's good. What does that mean? Meaning that you decide the output for a kind of designated outcome, I guess. That's good. And also mandate. Yeah, that is great. You need to give the team some mandate in order to be enable autonomy, of course. Clear boundaries, yeah, that's a good one. And in a sense, that's kind of also tied to clear goals, and a vision kind of says that, these are the boundaries that we operate within, not outside these boundaries, but it's inside. It's okay in a sense. And teams own the how. Yeah, that's a good one. Purpose, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Purpose. That truly unlocks some, the internal motivation part of it. And fast feedback, yeah, that's good. Safety, that's an interesting one. What do we mean by safety in this case?
It was me that was a little bit lazy there, so it was written psychological safety.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That's an interesting one. Okay, cool. So, very good job. Just in in a minute or two, we managed together to scramble together a good set of preconditions or enablers for empowerment. But do we really need to care about all of these as leaders, and are some of these more important than others? Which one should we choose? Yeah, the answer to this is actually that they're all important. Sometimes, it's easier to remember things and to learn things and practice them if you have a bit of a model to apply to what you do, right? And we refer to this as the control and clarity and competence perspectives. And we actually need to kind of, we can't just work with competence or just competence control, for example, because then we would have, well performed work, but not aligned with what we want to do. So we need to work with all three of these. And the kind of sweet spot here is, of course, to have a balance between these perspectives: control, clarity, and competence. And we can switch over to the PowerPoint to make that even more tangible and useful, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I'll go back to the PowerPoint in a second. Sorry.
No problem. It's always nice with a little break.
So here we go.
Yeah. So this is the model I was referring to. We call it Tune Control to Competence and Clarity. You can click once. This is actually a book that Mickey referred to just a minute ago, Turn the Ship Around by David Marquette. He's a former U-boat or submarine, I don't know the proper word, commander. And he has written a lot about like how to create the good conditions to increase the autonomy and ownership of outcomes in the actual organization. And it's very useful. And the model is very simple and it's very useful when working, like engaging with teams, for example, as a leader. On the y-axis, let me see if I can have a little pointer here. No, I can't. Yeah. On the y-axis, you have like how much control you give to the teams. Yeah. And on the x-axis, you have competence and clarity. And of course, I mean, unfortunately, one anti-pattern we have been seeing a lot is that, okay, now, the teams are going to be empowered. So I, as a leader, I just step back and give the teams, full control. It's like I don't even dare to engage with the teams because, what if they think I'm trying to micromanage them? And what happens then is that we're actually in chaos territory because the competence and clarity, the direction and the boundaries are not clear, and the competence in the teams might not be there to actually, solve the challenges and problems that they have. So that's not a good place to be in. And on the other hand, what usually happens in these scenarios is that, the teams fail. We actually go back here. We take control back. That didn't work, They can't be empowered. So, and then we're kind of back into this narrow field here where we have very little control given and don't have, an incentive or a demand even to increase competence and clarity. And over time, when the team gains competence and clarity more and more, you will be in this frustration zone with very low engagement, command and controlling highly skilled people. That's never a good thing. So yeah, if you click once here, what we actually want to do as leaders, and this is like a very useful and directly applicable tactic for us as leaders. We need to start to give control to the teams, but not too much, not like insanely much, but to a level where it's safe in a sense. What that is of course depending on your context, but enough so that it kind of creates a demand for more competence and clarity. It's a really good thing if the team comes back and say, we have this outcome we want to achieve, but we can't really decide on what to do. And here you don't want to step in and take that decision, right? Because that would be, actually pulling back the control giving to the team. And I know that's super hard, because in those situations, you as a leader, you feel very useful. Oh, they need me. I can take this decision. That's perfect. But what you want to do is actually ask questions and see, what type of clarity or data or information or even competence are the team missing in order to be able to take the decision themselves. You can click again. So, and in this way, you are giving a bit more control to the teams than they have the competence and clarity to do, and provide the competence and clarity they need to solve the problem themselves without stepping in and solving it. And what you're doing there is you're actually helping them solve a problem in a way so that they are increasingly getting better at solving problems. Then you have them in this flow zone, and you have like a good, that means that people and teams are actually learning and developing and being more and more capable to being autonomous. It's almost like learning and development is a function of the control given and the competence and clarity. And then you have good conditions to increase empowerment in the organization. Anything you want to add, Mike?
Yeah, to build to that, it is perhaps a bit tough and sad to say, but it all starts with you guys, the leaders. It has to start there. It has to start with you giving control to the teams. It's really, really hard for teams to try to increase their mandate by themselves. So that's almost like an oxymoron. So it has to start with you letting go of control, and of course the problem is to find the level of control that you start out with giving. So that is the problem, but this is something that we help a lot of companies with when we try to move them into a more of a product operating model with trying to create empowered organizations. So that is something that is hard, but that's the truth. It has to start with you guys. Cool. So a lot of things can actually be connected back to this model, so what we've seen here is that. There we go. Is that there is more common threads around this type of leadership. So if we're trying to have a leadership model where we want to empower and trust people and create leaders instead of followers, this means that you as a leader need to model the way, which we saw an example of in the Meyer board. We need to design the system that empowers and teams and people. Shape direction and clarity, build high-performing teams, and develop people. And we're not going to talk about all of this today. We're going to talk about the things that we see that many organizations are perhaps not focusing enough on. A lot of this is, of course, happening in organizations today, but But what we see when we're out there is that one thing that's missing is the knowledge in how to build high-performing teams. So there's a lot of research being done on how to create and build high-performing teams. And one of the great books on this is The Leading Teams from Hackman. And in this, we have a number of characteristics or things that needs to be in place in order to be able to create a high-performing team. That is a compelling direction. So of course, knowing what we're aiming for, what's the goal, what's the objective. And compelling means that this is something that we as a team, we believe in. Yes, we can commit to this direction. We have, of course, the necessary skill set, the competence, as Johannes called it, or rather David Marquet calls it. We have clear boundaries, also something that some of you wrote in the chat before. We have clear boundaries. We know our playing field. Where is our autonomy? Where can we act? What's the constraints and the boundaries where we shouldn't be outside of? And it must be clearly specified that the teams have the authority to manage their own work processes. That means that the teams will organize themselves in order to solve the problems that they're given. They will fix that. And you don't have to have someone else coming in and telling them what to do and in which way. You need to have some kind of stability of membership over some reasonable period of time. They need, of course, resources and support. And mind you, dear leaders, resources is not people. People is people. Resources is resources. So by resources, we mean money, budget, things like that, but also things like, tooling, environments, computers, and stuff like that. They need, of course, customer feedback loops. So knowing, okay, are we building the right stuff? And competent coaching, mainly from you, from the leaders, in order to move forward and learn more. And it's not a given that all teams become high performing. And it takes a while. So some of the research shows that it takes perhaps between half a year and a year for teams to become high performing. So you need to have some kind of tenacity into this. You need to put the work in order to give this a chance to happen. So again, not all teams become high performing. So investing in knowledge in this is very, very useful. Another classic on the topic is the 5 dysfunctions of a team from Patrick Lencioni. And he goes more into the root cause. How come that teams become dysfunctional? And it looks a little bit like this that the inattention to results, because we're pursuing individual goals and personal status, that actually erodes the focus on collective success. So it's hard to do some kind of collective work and a teamwork if we focus on the individual too much. And that, of course, leads to some kind of avoidance of accountability, that you need to avoid discomfort. So you don't engage in holding each other accountable to your goals, which leads to lack of commitment, of course, and also a fear of conflict, that you really preserve the artificial harmony. And if that's artificial, the harmony, then yes, things like innovation and designing things together is not going to happen. And ultimately, it is the absence of trust in the team, the fear of being vulnerable with team members, that prevents building the trust in the team. And if you don't have trust, then of course, how will you work together as a team if you don't trust each other? So that is more often than not the root cause of why teams aren't working together. And Patrick Lencioni is not the only one that has found out that that's the root cause. We also have the Google research from the Google Aristotle project. You might have heard of this, where researchers found that what really mattered was less about who's on the team and more about how the team worked together. And this is what they found, that psychological safety was the #1 cause for becoming a team becoming high performing. So team members was feeling safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. That was the #1 reason why a team became high performing. Not that people met Google's high bar for excellence, not that you knew your role and the plans and the goals, and not that the work was personally important to all team members, and not that team members thought that their work mattered and created change. Psychological safety, #1, and this was a research for 180 teams over 2 years at Google. Okay, so this is product teams, of course, and building high-performing teams. So what about leadership groups then, and leadership teams? Well, Hackman again, together with Weigman, wrote this book, the Senior Leadership Teams book, where they summarize their research. And this is a study of more than 120 leadership teams around the world. And they found out that it actually doesn't differ from any ordinary team. It is the same things that you need to have in order to be a high-performing leadership team. And this is also something that we work quite a lot with, helping leadership groups becoming leadership teams. Far from all leadership or management groups out there are working as a team together. So what we're trying to do then is to build a cohesive leadership team with all the things that we saw in the previous picture, that trusts one another, engages in constructive conflict, and they commit to group decisions, and we hold each other accountable. Then, of course, we need to create clarity, as Johannes was talking about. So creating organizational clarity is clarifying things like, values, strategies, goals, roles, and responsibilities. Sorry, but it doesn't really suffice with printing out some posters and put at the wall at the office. You've all heard that before. So what will you do instead? Well, you need to over-communicate this clarity. So that means that you repetitively and comprehensively, communicate this organizational clarity over and over and over again until you get fed up with your own voice, more or less. And more often than not, when you get fed up with your own voice saying the same thing, that's when the team start listening. Okay, so they've said this a lot of times now. Maybe it's something important in there. What was it that she was saying? And then at every time possible, you reinforce that clarity. So in meetings that you have, when you do all hands, when you meet teams, when you do reviews, whatnot, you try to have 30 seconds and reiterate and restate and, over and over again, go through, okay, what are the goals that we're doing? So a lot of work goes into communication here in order to give transparency, create transparency, give the information needed in order for empowerment to be able to happen. So what more can you do as a leadership team then? Well, help out in setting direction, provide a strategic context. That means, describing what have you seen that the product teams might not have seen. You have perhaps more of a helicopter perspective and can connect the dots a little bit more. You can facilitate this alignment, so by having these kinds of discussions. Remove obstacles, of course, develop people and teams, and of course there's more to do this in order to do this. And another very practical thing then, let's go into at least one practical thing that we see is lacking with many leadership teams is having some kind of operating rhythm. So what we try to help them with is set up like, okay, how should we operate as a leadership team? How often should we see each other and what should we do at these different times? So we propose, very much like ordinary product teams, that have a short daily huddle and plan the day. Have some kind of weekly tactical meeting where you plan the week, perhaps. Hammer time. This is where you meet up a couple of hours per week and you work together on different topics. If you don't have anything to work on, then do other stuff, but try to work together, and that will help you becoming a team. The monthly strategic is, you know, a mid-term or mid-long planning, so to speak. So a mid-level planning where you look at, okay, the coming month, and then having some kind of quarterly offsite where you put in a day or two, perhaps in doing even longer planning, reiterating on the goals and vision and so on, perhaps doing some education, team building stuff and things like that. So try to get in this kind of rhythm and work as an ordinary, if you like, team is really a way of trying to becoming more of a team as leaders rather than just a group that sees each other now and then. Okay, the other part that I wanted to talk about a couple of minutes is designing the system. That's also things that we see is often not getting that much focus. The system, either you want it or not, you have a system in the company, how you operate. And we prefer organizations to be very explicit in how you develop this system or this operating model in order to get the results that you want. And one concrete way to think about this is the sports analogy, the sports team analogy. So talk about things like, what does winning look like? This means that you talk about the vision or the mission of the organization or the company. And what's the plan then in order for us to be able to win? So that's your strategy and tactics. And what's the score? Where are we now? So that's progress and status and feedback loops and stuff like that. What's preventing us from winning? That's your continuous improvement on people and teams and strategy and tactics again. So what can we do in order to do this better? And ultimately, perhaps ask the question, what needs to happen that's not already happening? And what can I, as a leader, do to cause this to happen without becoming a bottleneck myself? And this is really important. Without becoming a bottleneck myself. So again, traditional leadership perhaps is where we see that leaders are there to make a lot of decisions. So and that often creates, you know, the calendars where you're triple booked all the time because you need to be in a lot of meetings in order to get all the information from all around the company in order to make these decisions. What if you could move that information, or not needing that information, but rather moving the mandate of decision making to the teams as much as possible where the information already is? So that's how you can avoid becoming a bottleneck and increase, again, empowerment with the teams. Cool. So that's one concrete way of thinking about creating the system, asking these questions, having these discussions. Another is designing your organization. How should our organization really look like? And you can't have an organization that's good at everything. You need to be very, very clear on what you're optimizing your organization for. Here's an example of organizational design goals that we helped the company with, where they were very clear because they were a scale-up company. So we want to optimize our organization for scalability and ownership. We want it to be clear how can we double in size and what team will be responsible for what. You can work with, you know, heuristics and constraints. You know, heuristics being rules of thumb that allows us to make a decision that has a high probability of being correct without having to think everything through, and constraints, something that limits or controls what you can do. So thinking about, again, ownership scalability, how autonomous should we be, cognitive overload, how much should each team be doing, or we can talk about geography and co-location, diversity, constraints on team size, alignment with architecture and stuff like that. So be very, very explicit with this. And then know that all teams don't have to look alike. There can be different types of teams. So from the book Team Topologies, which talks about how to set up dynamic team structures and interaction modes that can help teams to adapt quickly to new conditions and achieve fast and safe software delivery. So stream-aligned team is your value-creating teams, but you can also have platform teams that functions a little bit differently, enabling teams, which is like, internal consultants helping out with stuff, or complicated subsystem teams where competence around this area is a scarce resource. There's not that many people in the country that knows how to build this. So knowing that you have different kind of Lego bricks to work with when putting together your organization. And another very concrete tip for you to use is the team API, which is a way of, documenting or describing how your team, how it's put together, the members, if we have any open positions, how are we as a team operating together, what's our mission and task, how does our roadmap look like, what kind of a team are we, what's our way of working, and so on and so forth. This is an example from Myroverse, the Myro library of different kind of templates, but you can create this on your own, of course. There's no right and wrong here, but having a way to describe to each other what different teams do we have and how do they look and what do they do. Another very concrete tip is the cocktail hour. So we talked about the cadence of working together. So if you have a big organization, perhaps doing this in some kind of order, starting out perhaps with leadership stand up in the morning so that they can go out to the organization and listen in to other team stand-ups, and then tribe is just a team of teams construct and how they work together. So thinking about this, how you set this up, could help the flow in your organization. Another great book tip here is the Tribal Unity book that you could look at. Okay, so that's a lot of things that you can do. And really what this is about is that we're trying to find the minimum viable bureaucracy. If we have too much bureaucracy, things will slow down, but you can't have too little and you'll end up in chaos. So trying to balancing this with your culture is, of course, the thing then when we talk about creating the system that empowers teams and people. Okay, that's really the end of this. We will sum up this with saying that we do have a class that talks more about this. That's coming up kind of soon, 2nd to 4th of March, which is the product model explained, learnings from Spotify and the other best product companies. And there's a lot of leadership in this class. A whole section around leadership and strategy. So learning more around how to build high-performing product and empowered organizations. Of course, you'll get a discount. And you'll get this information in our send out, of course. And also, as a thanks for showing up today, we are offering a free coaching hour. So 1 hour of coaching with one of us on your leadership challenge. So you need to be in an operational leadership role. But that's really the only constraints there is. So again, details will be in the email from us. So hopefully some of you will take up on this opportunity to talk to any of us, really. And on our site, we have more courses and webinars, of course, coming up. We're here today, so we have another free webinar, really popular, the Full Stack Product Manager, where we talk more about product management. And again, the product model explained class that's coming up, and the Full Stack Product Manager class, where we have 3 full-packed days of product management. Okay, cool. So back to the Menti. Please, oh, sorry. This is, of course, not the right way to do this. We should go back here and say, how likely are you to recommend this being a leader in an empowered organization webinar to a colleague or friend? So please go back into the Menti and give us some feedback.